When I got there, they had gone through about 5 or 6 different project managers, and nobody wanted the job because it wasn't glamorous. You know, there was just 60, there was a huge project. It was way more than 60 million, but there was $60 million left that they were putting together, and there was no money left. So that 60 million had to come from the municipalities that we were passing the pipeline through. And of course, I end up with the project and taking the project and having to go into these municipalities and negotiate how to get the pipeline through, bring them this, you know, Lake Michigan water, but then yet negotiate how they're going to get paid and how we're going to get paid from it.
Thank you for joining me, Sister Sajda, Wendy, Muhammad. I am so excited for this interview. You know, we have a lot that we can talk about. We have a lot that we've been sharing over the years for entrepreneurship and business and working with our people. But I am just extremely for this interview. So thank you for joining me first. Where's my manners? Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be able to be here. I'm grateful that you're trusting me with your audience, and honored that you would introduce me to your audience. So thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, we have such a great chemistry, and I'm honored that you would grace me with your presence and your knowledge and your wisdom, as well as share with the audience some of the knowledge base, the body of knowledge that you possess from all of the different things that you've accomplished. You know, this is going to be great. So I'm excited and looking forward to this. So without further delay, you know, I have the bio here. It's very extensive. I don't want to read through everything. We're going to pull out some things, but I really want you to tell the listening audience, who is Sajda Wendy Muhammad?
And that's a loaded question because I'm in a space, Brother Bedford, where she's evolving and she's being revealed to me. And as I focus and submit and align myself with what I showed up on the planet to do, at least what I think I showed up on the planet to do, I'm amazed at what Allah is putting together. And that's why now I say I of myself am nothing. I really get that, because my career as a business developer, as a business consultant, as an auditor, some of the training I've done in emotional intelligence, and my love of the arts has just all come together in a really magical way that I couldn't have put together myself. So over the years, being a business developer and a consultant really laid the base for the work that I do today. Because as an auditor, as a business consulting, as a developer, you're in and out of different companies and different scenarios and different situations every 3 months, sometimes 6 months. Sometimes you go places for a week. Sometimes you get a year-long assignment. But what happens is you develop this muscle. Sometimes you're going into places where people don't want you there, but you got to do your job anyway. It might be an acquisition. It might be a merger. You might be there to sell off a particular division of the company. Sometimes people just don't want to be bothered. Other times you go into places where somebody has really messed up a situation, and you got to, you know, put the muscle together to put that puzzle back together. Other times you go into situations where a person got sick, or they left, or they got fired, or something tragic happened to them. And so then you have to figure that out. But what I'm saying all that to say is that you begin to develop a muscle. And some of that becomes a little bit of crisis management work, a little bit of business development, I was on a big $60 million pipeline project. It's an interesting story behind that. I can tell later, but when I got there, they had gone through about 5 or 6 different project managers, and nobody wanted the job because it wasn't glamorous. You know, there was just 60, there was a huge project. It was way more than 60 million, but there was $60 million left that they were putting together, and there was no money left. So that 60 million had to come from the municipalities that we were passing the pipeline through. And of course, I end up with the project and taking the project and having to go into these municipalities and negotiate how to get the pipeline through, bring them this, you know, Lake Michigan water, but then yet negotiate how they're going to get paid and how we're going to get paid from it. So that's just an example of the types of things that, you know, I've done, from controllers who just disappeared on big insurance companies to companies that if a particular mistake was not fixed in their financials, and if you couldn't convince the auditors to give them, you know, the right kind of rating, they were going to be out of business. So there's that kind of thing. There's learning to deal with pressure. So it's just a muscle that I've developed, and I pull that together with my love of the arts, with my spirituality. And now I'm able to share that and help people who look like me become millionaires and billionaires and get on that track. So when you say who is she, I'm an artist who uses business as her canvas.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And, you know, and this is one of the things that I love about you, is that the uniqueness of you as an entrepreneur, right? Normally when we start talking to entrepreneurs or business owners or professionals, you don't get this type of nuance, this sense of purpose, right? You don't really get this, because when you're in a capitalistic society, everybody's told the only thing that matters is the green, right? It's very cutthroat, it's very rugged individualism and all of those different things. And so, as you mentioned, that you've built up this muscle because you did go into those environments, but now those environments have become, you know, the raw material for what you're creating now, right? It's a whole new dynamic that you're creating, and that's what I find very intriguing about what you do. You're a very unique entrepreneur. I truly resonate with the part that you were talking about, the purpose, right? You kind of get to a space where what entrepreneurship really represents is a freedom of purpose, and you start growing into some type of purpose, making it make sense. And so I love that about you. And all of these different areas that you've been in has really just added something completely different from anyone else who just wants to do this, but they don't have this vast experience. They haven't been in these industries dealing with municipalities, large corporations, Africa, right? We hadn't even talked about that yet. I mean, you're doing these business deals internationally. So this is why I really wanted to kind of really get into the mind of this entrepreneur that's sitting in front of me, or viewing each other through the screen. So I want to ask you a couple questions about that, your purpose. But before we get to that, I do want to kind of go back into one of the areas that you kind of stumbled into, right? You mentioned, you know, some of the business deals that you were part of as an auditor, an advisor, a consultant, but you literally ended up being partners in helping to build these beautifully crafted hospitals or clinics, and a different type of business model. So can you tell us how you got into that, and then what this type of business model, this hospital entails, what that entails for you?
You know, Brother Bedford, I think that seed was planted a long time ago, but I didn't know. I had a counselor who told me that because my science scores were good, that I should be a doctor. And I remember going and looking up how much family practitioners make, and I was like, they don't make enough money. I'm not trying to do that. And but it's just always been something that was of interest to me. And I watched growing up, you know, my grandmother, who now I would call her a frequent hospital flyer. You know, always going to the doctor for something, and really putting all her trust in whatever doctor or whoever was behind that white coat. And so years later, as a consultant, as a developer, I'd spent some time in the healthcare industry. I did a few little consulting projects, but when I was in DC, working on the TARP fund as a subcontracting consultant, I met my business partner who brought me on to help him build clinics. And so we started building the clinics, but the challenging thing and something that I had no idea of was that, and I should have known because I watched enough Lifetime back in the day when I was traveling a lot, that healthcare is very gangster. And so you got to find a way to get in and navigate and outthink the gangsters. It's very, very, I call them gangbangers and set trippers.
In the healthcare space.
In the healthcare space, yeah, because they, for one, if you start off, in our case, they don't want to send you any patients. And so we sitting here with these clinics and we don't have any patients. And I said, okay, we said we're going to go to the patients. And so what we did was we literally packed our cars up. We had 1 or 2 office staff members, packed them up, and went to, I went to the DC Office on Aging, and I met with them, and I said, listen, allow us to bring healthcare to the wellness centers and the retirement homes and the nursing homes. Let us bring it there. We'll do free screenings. And they don't have to come to us, but if they like us, then they're welcome to come. We're not even going to suggest that they come and see us. And so we just went out there and we grinded. I'm talking about when we would pull up at these retirement centers, sometimes the lines would be out the door down the street.
Wow.
With our people wanting to be serviced and wanting another opinion as to what is wrong with them. We saw thousands of patients. And then those patients start saying, well, where y'all at? Because we coming to y'all. But we would always just give them their analysis and hand it to them and let them go. And then they started coming to us. And we got to the point where we couldn't do the screenings anymore because we got so busy. And we said, okay, we wanted to buy a hospital. And so I started doing consulting work at 2 different hospitals just to learn the hospital game, to understand the game. That's when I found out how gangster they were. Just trying to cut you out, stealing your ideas, jacking your proposals. We had physical threats. We had, I came out of the hospital one time and all my tires were flat.
Wow.
And we've had people call the office, threaten us. It was interesting starting out, and we just kept at it. And when we got ready, and I'll tell this story about the late great Marion Barry. This happened right before he passed. We were trying to buy a hospital in DC, and I went to him because I'd heard that they were looking to sell it. And I had gotten some interest from a group of investors that wanted to do it. And, but the issue was that the hospital had a lot of debt on it. And I said, is there any way? We came up with this idea was to try to get the district to forgive the debt on the hospital, and then we could offer to buy it. And then Marion Barry explained to me that, if they forgave the debt, it would affect their bond rating. But the beautiful thing about him, and this is when I learned about stereotyping people, because the only thing I knew about him was what I had seen on the news.
Right.
And he brought me to his office, and he made every single phone call he could think of. He helped me. He let me present before the city council.
Wow.
And then at the end, he was like, sister, what you say your name was again? And I'm saying all that to say,
Right.
Brother Bedford, that just that kind of person who's just willing to help you. And then maybe about the 3rd time that I went to his office, he looked at me and he said, excuse my language, he said, don't F with this S. Build your own. Do your own thing. He's like, you way smarter. You know, and I brought my business partner down there to meet him, and it turned out that he knew his mother and all of that. And so then we started the track of building something for ourselves. And when we presented the model to the state, you know, people told us that they wouldn't do it. Maryland was way too conservative. They wouldn't accept it, and they did. And then we started building, took 4 years. So that meant it took a lot of stamina. It takes a lot of stamina to build a project like that, and to do these big long-term projects. You got to have a lot of focus. You got to have a lot of stamina. You got to have a lot of muscle, because you got to be strong. Right. Every step of the way, there's some kind of obstacle. There's something difficult. There's some challenge. And we faced all of them. But at the end of the day, we built a model that's transferable to any other subsurgical specialty, to any other healthcare specialty, that we can take and really work to address the needs of our people, and to take back ownership of our health, which is really what part of the problem is. We're just guinea pigs.
Right. Right. Now, what was the specialty of this hospital, of this clinic?
It's vascular. It's vascular. So we treat all the diseases of the arteries, veins, and lymphatic systems.
Wow.
So what our people would call poor circulation.
Yeah, which our people really are plagued with this situation, and most times we don't even know it. We're just walking around and have all of these ailments, and it's due to these issues here. So I gotta pause you right here, because I think there's a huge lesson in that for so many entrepreneurs who are looking for, you know, especially to build something of that size, to build something that's so impactful, and you want to do it in 30, 60 days. And you just told us that, you know, this was a 4-year-long project that you had to really dig your heels in and make it happen. And you literally spearheaded the entire construction of this. And I took a tour of the clinic, and the way that it's designed, the music, the art, everything, the environment was conducive for healing. So just two, boy, that's pregnant. This conversation is pregnant already. But just 2 points real quick. What made you, in the construction process, want to design an environment like that, an inviting environment that would serve for healing for our people? And then the other question is, you know, which is more so leaning towards your advice for other entrepreneurs, what would you say was the catalyst for you to be in this project for so long and not give up?
So first of all, just so that people understand, you know, healthcare, and there's different business models, traditional business models of healthcare. You have clinics, you have doctor's offices, you have ambulatory surgery centers, you have freestanding surgery centers, you have urgent care centers, you have community hospitals. Then you have like that mid-level, and then you got your trauma centers and your big hospitals. What we built was a hybrid between a community hospital and a freestanding surgery center. So, and so it was that's why the model was a bit tricky. So we have everything that a hospital has, except we don't have overnight beds. We can keep people 23 hours and 59 minutes. And, right. And so most things outside of something where you really need to, most of our people go to the hospital and stay because we don't have a place to convalesce at home.
Wow.
So we end up going and staying in the hospital longer, which is really more dangerous. You know, outside of, you know, if you have some type of open surgery that may require a day and a half, but if you notice nowadays, even if you have an open surgery, they want you home in less than 3 days.
Right.
You're not laying up in there like grandma and them did for 3 weeks in the hospital.
Right.
So, and so there's a lot that you can do with just that 1 day stay, you know, and the idea behind designing the hospital the way we did, it's 27,000 square feet. We have 6 exam rooms. We have 3 angio suites, 1 OR. We have a 9-bay recovery. We have a radiology department. We have a juice bar there. And of course, there's an art gallery and music, and so it's got a green roof. It's a LEED facility, and so the idea is to put our people in a position where they get a little bit better treatment than what they might normally get, but also will put them at ease. Because what happens, Brother Bedford, a lot of people walk into the hospital, they see the white coats and they know they're in the hospital, the way it smells, all of that. They go, man, my blood pressure now is up 20, 30 points because I'm scared, I'm nervous, and maybe they're not that friendly. Or if they are friendly, they may be talking over my head, and I may just be resistant to change. I might be stressed out because I really don't want to hear what they got to say. And so the idea behind that is to reduce some of that fight or flight, to get you to relax, which is going to accelerate your healing process. It's going to make you do better in surgery. It's going to make it easier for you to absorb the information. So in addition to the design of the facility, there also was the approach where we call it marketing through education. So when you come there, you're going to leave with a diagram and a document that tells you exactly what is wrong with yourself, with you. Just like here in America, so much so it happens a lot in Africa. If you're sick, it's hard to figure out what's wrong with you. And even here in the States, there's so much misdiagnosis. There's diagnosis that is not timely. And believe it or not, a lot of people get treated for something that maybe is wrong, unfortunately. And healthcare disparities they go across socioeconomic, lines. So people like yourself and I, who are high-end professionals, we would walk into the hospital and probably deal with some of those same disparities. The other piece of that, Brother Bedford, is that a lot of times we think that if we see a Black person there, that I hear people go, oh, I got a Black doctor.
Right.
Or I got a Black dermatologist or a Black dentist, which in some cases is good. It's better than not. But in a lot of cases, what we have to understand is that Black doctor, that Black dentist, if they're working in an institution, they are implementing the rules and the processes and the systems that are dictated to them by the people who run the system. So just because they have a Black face does not necessarily mean that you're going to get care that is tailored to who you are. You have to be able to take those great Black doctors and those great Black clinicians and pull them out of a healthcare system that is being run by the insurance companies. Right. And so we have a lot of different nuances, in the center where we fight for our patients. We fight the insurance companies. We have a whole department that literally is fighting to help people get their surgeries paid for. A lot of patients don't even know it. They just know they went 2 or 3 other places and they all told them no, and they come to us and they say, yeah, they think we just crazy, but it's because we fought for them behind the scenes. Right. So you also asked about entrepreneurs and the longevity. What you're doing has to become bigger than you. And so for myself, I said, at the end of the day, I want to be able to say that I did this, and I want to create this model that we can take and move it around the country so that our people can heal themselves or get on the road to healing, I should say, and have better access to healthcare. When I start coupling that with entrepreneurship and making money, and of course, you see people who demonize making money. The more money you have, the more healthcare choices you have. The more money you have will determine whether or not you can. I'll give you an example. When we treat vascular disease and diabetics tend to have what they call small vessel disease, where their nerves and their vessels become really small, especially below the knee. So a lot of times you see a lot of toe amputations and things like that. You have 3 vessels that feed your foot from your knee. If you go to some public health insurance companies and you say, hey, I want to do this surgery on, auntie so-and-so, they'll say, oh, we pay for 1 vessel. Wow. And we say, yeah, but you need 3. We paying for 1. And if you want us to pay for more than 1, then you got to jump through some hoops. We want to see all this stuff if you want us to pay for that patient. to have more than one vessel fixed going below their knee. Well, if you have money and you can pay for that yourself, you don't have to deal with somebody telling you you're going to get one vessel. You ain't got but one vessel, you're going to have your feet amputated at some point. You're going to have a hard time walking around. But if you can get that platinum insurance plan with the money you make as an entrepreneur, or if you can have enough money to pay for it yourself, or if you see a big special surgery you want to go to Thailand, that money gives you choices. And so just really the idea behind this is just helping people re-own not only our culture, but just re-own our healthcare. So that's why I hung in there. I was just determined. I always want to do things that no one else has done. I'd like to be able to see my vision come into fruition. And I didn't care. I wasn't running out of gas. I was in the trailer, Timberland boots on, climbing ladders, whatever I had to do.
Right. No, this is awesome. And just for the listening audience, viewing audience, you already know Wendy has to come back to do more, because that conversation surrounding healthcare and just some of the things you pointed out about we're in an age now where we're talking about systemic racism and institutional racism, and so you're highlighting some of those things with the healthcare industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and so you were really going up against some giants, right? Some Goliaths in the work that you were doing. So we really want to dig into that. But I mean, you have such a vast amount of experience in so many things. I kind of want to talk about that some more, but I do want to kind of move on so that people can kind of see some of the other things that you've done. Matter of fact, let's just talk about this real quick about, now, was it your intent to take this model to Africa? Because I know you had some business dealings in Africa. So is that the Africa connection?
Yes, that was the intent, was to take this model to Africa. There's some tweaking that we discovered we would need to do in Africa. One of the challenges that happens a lot in Africa, even with people with money, is if you're sick, you just can't get the diagnosis right. It's hard to get to a place that can give you your radiology studies, your CAT scans, your MRI, and help you figure out what's going on, x-rays. And so we were talking about opening a diagnostic center there where you would go to the diagnostic center, leave out with your reports, and then you have a choice on whether or not you want to come to the States, because medical tourism is big. Medical tourism is huge. They lose so much money in Africa due to medical tourism, because people get on the plane and they go to London, they go to Italy, they go to China, they come to the United States. We have a number of patients that come from Africa. The pandemic kind of stopped that a little bit because we couldn't move around over there like we wanted, but the idea was to help people there gain access to diagnosis. And they're used to paying cash. They do have some, they call them insurance schemes. They do have some insurance schemes there, primarily in South Africa and some parts of Western Africa. But for the most part, people pay cash for their surgeries and their procedures and stuff. And unfortunately, the more they get into eating processed foods and becoming more like us, the more they're going to be plagued, primarily, number one, with cardiovascular disease.
Right. This is just super rich. Again, we could go on and on about just this subject alone, but I really want to talk about some of the other entrepreneurial endeavors that you've been a part of. One, your partnership in a franchise, because again, I get questions all the time about how to do that. So I'm hoping everybody is really, listening to everything that we're talking about. I mean, the hospital, how that, that is just a serious undertaking that you're involved in there. So, we're going to, unpack that at another time, but just the time, the experience that you spent there, but then you go from there and you're also partners in a franchise. So I want you to talk about the franchise, and then I want to get into your real estate development, and then we're going to wrap up with what you're currently doing, because you've introduced some terms that I kind of want to dig a little deeper on, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
So the franchise piece of it was a really great educational experience. It actually still is, because what I learned was how to package processes and transfer them from one person or one entity to the next. And this is in the service industry, which is really an interesting thing. A lot of times people hear about franchising when you're talking about food, for example, or certain tangible things like that. This was, of course, Massage Envy. And so the model, and everything is standardized, from the computer systems to the hold music to how you answer the phone, what you wear at the front desk, how your clinic has to look. I wanted this beautiful white couch in the front of the clinic, and they was like, Wendy, if you don't get that couch out of here, we ain't doing that. So everything is standardized. And I think that's an important model for us to learn. As we build and develop and move our businesses around, we have to understand certain things have to be standardized. And if they're standardized, it gives you a metrics so that you can understand how well the business is or is not doing. Massage Envy is an interesting, or that whole industry. One of the things that I'm looking to do is really take that model then and even expand it, because there's different levels of healthcare as well, right? There's the self-care piece of it, which is massage and Reiki and facials and full body stretching and, some of those kind of things. And then there's little treatments and stuff that can go along with that, from acupuncture to reflexology and things like that. But then there's your bigger healthcare that once you need some intervention, you move into the hospital space as well. So they all kind of go hand in hand. And I learned so much from there. And that's one of the things that I really look forward to, being able to just not so much replicate, but to take that whole mindset and multiply other businesses. And so I've been helping a couple of my clients to franchise and to multiply their businesses. We have like Sean Michelle's in Chicago, where they're the ice cream shop, and they have amazing flavors. They're really taking our culture and spreading it, among people with the different types of ice cream they have, but it's scalable. And so they have different models. And so just working with them, I sit on their advisory board, working with them. I have another client we're working on trying to build scalable financial services opportunities for people. These are all ways in which we can really expand in a quick manner, fast, and get the word out there, build entrepreneurs, because the idea is to get as large of an ecosystem as we possibly can in the shortest period of time, because we really want to introduce much needed goods and services into our community. And everybody's a victim, Brother Bedford, to this predatory capitalism that we're all forced to bow down to. All races, all colors, all cultures. There's just another way of doing things. You can be conscious and be an entrepreneur. You see the trend now. A lot of companies want to have a cause. They want to have a reason why they do business. They want to profit with a purpose. And, that's the whole idea of, that piece of the model that I've been building. And that Massage Envy franchise helped me to really understand how to scale that.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to come back to that piece that you just mentioned. Let me ask you this, though. When you got started with the Massage Envy, did you find, because I know a lot of people run into this, if you're a pure entrepreneur, you run into this obstacle of not being creative with your business, because you're right, you have to follow the model that's already in its place and existence. So did you find that your creativity and the things that you were doing before, was it stifled, or was it just something that you were just putting in your toolbox for a later date?
It was just a toolbox, because for me, it was very stifling. I felt like I could see so many ways that things could be done better, but I understood and respected the process and learned from that process, and just learned what kind of mindset I needed to have in order to participate in something like that. But yeah, it not only is it difficult because your creativity is stifled, you have to understand that you're also paying for access to a system. So an advertising system, a marketing system, a think tank, if you will, because they've already kind of thought out things, a communication strategy. So you're paying and buying into that. The other downside is that the margins are really tight. And it's a tough business to run because the margins are, it's not like surgery. It's not like major surgery where you got huge margins. These are tight margins that are hard to navigate within. And it's something that if you decide to go into the franchise world, you have to decide, are you okay with that? Because
who should go into the franchise world? If you're not willing to, put on your boots, sleep in a trailer for 4 years to build your own idea, you may want to look at a model that's already in existence where you're literally buying the business after all of this other work has been done, and you're just buying the systems.
That's right. You're buying to hook into that system. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of people that should go into that, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, or if you just really got other businesses and maybe you say, I want to be in this industry, and you want to go into that, and you hire you a good operations manager and you handle that. So those are the people that I would say should go into that kind of business. People who just say, I don't want to have to think of all that on my own. See, for the vascular center model, we thought of all of that. Our communication strategy, we created our own ads, our own forms, our own patient flow, our own methodology on how to obtain client history and diagnose and treat them, our own methodology for presenting what's medically necessary. So all of the things that you would normally get in a franchise, we had to create all of that. So if you don't want to create all that, or you don't know how, a franchise would be good for you. So to say, hey, Sister Sajda, I have a clinic that I want to open up. I can bring a model to you to show you what works, with our people, even down to showing you how to treat our people, which is a whole nother science in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. No, this is great, man. And I love your approach. And I want people to pick up that nugget there, that you were committed to the experience, the education, the training for a later date. So you were willing to take chances, not only on your own, but also with the franchise, so that you could accumulate the knowledge and the wisdom for what you're currently doing now. And that's, to be honest, that is quite, admirable, for one, because a lot of people don't have that type of stamina. And if we're in need of a paycheck, it's very hard to say, I'm just putting this in my toolbox right now for a later date. Again, another subject that we can probably dig deep.
But Brother Benford, let me say this. I'm addicted to the magic. And the magic comes when you go beyond your intellectual capacity.
Right.
If you want to get spiritual, that's when you go into triple darkness and pull out something creative, right? That's where you really get your rewards. You can push up against your intellectual capacity, but I encourage people, especially entrepreneurs, get yourself to the point where you can go beyond your intellectual capacity, and that's where the non-predatory billionaires and multimillionaires are made.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you said it, because I'm actually engaging in some study, and some of the things that I'm talking about is for entrepreneurs to really dive into their unique abilities, their unique capabilities, and start building businesses around that, there's not a template for that. When you start looking at yourself as an original, as unique, you're not like any other person. You're not trying to if I try to do what Sister Sajda is doing, I would just do it mediocre. Because it's not my strength. So I would just be a mediocre version of Sajda Wendy Muhammad.
And the same me with you.
Exactly. But if you want to be excellent, you got to go into your own space and discover your own unique abilities and talents, and learn how to evolve them and develop them, so that you can begin to expand in these areas. And that's when I mentioned earlier about you taking this, putting it in your toolbox. That's what I see, is that you're looking at your unique ability And now you're
Mm-hmm.
exploring all of these different business dynamics, again, internationally, in the healthcare space, in the franchising space. But this is all a part of your unique ability to do what you're doing now. We're getting ready to talk about what you're doing now, which I think is genius. And the stamina that it's taken for you to kind of go through all of this for educational purposes. It's, you know, I mean, we could talk about this. That this is not, when you do something like this and it's a plan, and you do it with the time span, the time horizon that you've done it, and then to know that you have something bigger, better, and brighter coming, you know, that takes a lot of willpower to do that. And I mean, we could really delve into that, but I do want to touch on a couple of things before we run out of time. So again, everybody knows that there's going to be a part 2. It has to be a part 2.
Yeah.
Again, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, do all of those things. We're getting ready to give you ways to contact Sister Sajda in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about, because people have asked me about, you know, your real estate development, right? So here it is, you know, obviously the hospital was a part of that as well. But what other real estate development projects have you been a part of? And I know that you're a part of a huge, monumental development right now. So can you speak to your real estate development and what you're currently working on now in that space?
One of the things that I think also with a model that I like to do is I like to make a lot of my businesses a real estate play. So the healthcare and the hospital, that's a real estate play, right? Because you got this $27 million building, and you have the business in there. So there's a number of different assets there. Business is an asset, the license is an asset, the real estate is an asset, the processes and the policies and procedures are proprietary assets. And so real estate, I like to make as one of the assets whenever I do a project. And one of my most recent, and the one that I'm 3 years into working on, and God willing will be ready to present to the world this year, is the renovation and the restoration of the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Chicago. And that's been a huge $3.5 million undertaking. It's going to end up being a little bit more than that. The idea behind it is multifactorial. One, of course, my love of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his greatest helper, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and really wanting to help lift their names and really show the world the way of life that he's taught us, which I do believe is very functional and is very superior. And it's a way of life that is transformative. But then it also is it's a real estate play, but it's also a play to monetize and control our culture, because that particular house is the single most important piece of property in modern day African American history. There's more leaders that have met and dined at that property than any other space in modern day African American history. But what that also
is that the house, were they in that location when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad met Martin Luther King?
Yes, sir.
So there's a photo that's circulating around. So if anyone ever sees that photo, it was in this house. So I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that.
Not only the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife, of course, Malcolm X and his wife, Betty Shabazz, Senator Adam Clayton Powell, James Baldwin, James Brown, Muhammad Ali, right, Kwame Ture, Bernard King. We could go on and on and on. Wilma Rudolph, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I mean, there's more people that have met and dined there. The entire delegation, Black delegation of the 1968 Democratic Convention. There's pictures of great Black entrepreneurs who met in that house and met with him. See, this is what people who came before us did, Brother Bedford. They met and they created this circle of influence, and they had these ecosystems where they met and dined with one another on a regular basis, not just every once in a while like we do on holidays. Hey, Brother Bedford, I'm gonna stop by for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. No, this is like every week, every other week, right, where they're meeting and discussing and talking about our development as a people. So in addition to that real estate play is really helping to ignite this cultural renaissance that, of course, is happening in Chicago, but it's happening all over our Black inner city communities, because I think the building commissioner in Chicago, Mr. Maurice Cox, said it best. The greatness of Black people is always caught up in the everyday and normal activities. So you have these homes where great people who changed the world, like Muddy Waters lived, Phyllis Wheatley house, Curtis Mayfield, Emmett Till, the Pullman Porters. I mean, there's just so much and so many people. I understand somebody purchased Madam C.J. Walker's house up in New York, and you got people like her and Annie Malone. Well, these are people who lived in our neighborhood because that's the only place they could live, Brother Bedford.
Right.
And so preserving that culture, getting into tourism, but that's all a real estate play. So real estate development for real real estate developers is not just taking the house and flip it. It's buying meaningful pieces of property and using the real estate as the anchor for the model.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, so your real estate is the anchor, whether it's a cultural center, whether it's a mall that, houses other African-American businesses, whatever it is, the idea to make real estate really be long-term and to make the money off of it, you want it to be the anchor of another piece of the business. I think a lot of us go, oh, I'm into real estate development and we're just flipping. We're buying and flipping. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a business model too. But I'm talking about, what the men who built America did and took these pieces of property and this real estate that still exists today. And then they built upon that.
This is awesome. This is great stuff. And it's funny that you mentioned taking the real estate and then doing other things with it, or having offshoots or other assets attached to it. You've done something very unique with the actual development. You've taken the copper from the house and you're doing what with the copper. So this is another ingenious play of Sister Sajda Wendy Muhammad. So tell us, here it is, you bought this home, but obviously you got to rewire it, repipe it, do all of these things, but you took the original copper and you've done what with it?
So this is about renovation and restoration. It's not a gut rehab. So we're not going in gutting walls. We're renovating and restoring. And so valuable pieces of property that are there, we're not throwing them away. So copper gutters, we said, okay, what can we do with all this copper? Let's make coins. Let's find a refinery that will melt these coins down, create a collector's item so people can walk away and own a piece of this historic history. Let's get the coins graded so that they're collector's items and they appreciate, with value. What about the windows, the old windows that we can't reuse? Well, we can sell those and somebody can have a piece of that history in their home as well. What about old fireplace mantles? We've made tables out of them. Let me show you something. I have a piece of so it looked like this. That's how the copper looked.
Right.
And so we got it melted down, and that's how we ended up, creating the coins.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And people who's ever watching this, you can purchase a coin. So what do they have to do to purchase a coin from the original copper from the house of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad? And what's on the coin? You can explain the coin and everything to them right now.
Yeah. So this project is my baby. This is just my crown jewel. It's one of the things that I just sit up some days and I just say, Allah, thank you for trusting me. That's all I can say. I know that I'm not good enough for this, and I think you knew that I would just remove myself and let go and let you. And so on the coin, the coin is made of 100% copper. We got it graded. Our copper is 100%. It's got 24 stars etched around the messenger's face. And on the front, it says, in the name of Allah. So normally you see, in God we trust on coins. Ours says, in the name of Allah. On the back, it's got the house etched on there with the Arabic phrase, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah. And he says he lives at the top. So it's a beautiful, it's about the size of a 50-cent piece. So when people think copper, they think it's the size of a penny, but it's not. It's 39 millimeters. So it's a pretty big coin.
It's 1 ounce,
And
right? It's 1 ounce.
1 ounce. It's 1 ounce. It's a 1 ounce coin. And we'll have other things that we're selling that are from the house. We've got bricks. We've got, we're not throwing anything away.
It's beautiful.
You know, because it's sacred space.
That's right. This is beautiful. So how do they get the coin?
Get the coin, you just go to sajdahouse.com, SAJDAHHOUSE. Put in the discount code HEM4847, and we're discounting the coin to $375. They're originally $500. When the house opens, we're gonna open it, we're gonna put them back at $500. So I say get your coin now.
Right.
And I have not been doing any international shipping, but I keep telling our people, get these coins, because by the time people internationally decide to get involved, they're going to scoop them up, and then you won't be able to get them.
Wow.
And they'll raise the price. They become then like a currency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, most people have this love for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad around the world that you don't know. So you're right. As soon as they know that there's this limited amount of coin, they will be swooping them up. So we encourage you to go to sajdahouse.com. The link will be below, so you'll be able to go there, enter the coupon code. Is it case sensitive, or is it just?
It is case sensitive. Thank you. It's HEM4847. The HEM is capitalized.
Okay, so
that's short for Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
Just in case you forget.
Right, HEM4847. So make sure that you do that as soon as you can, and encourage others to do this, to have a piece of history and really a piece of our future, because Sister Sajda Wendy Muhammad is really building something special there that we're going to be doing there. And I want you to kind of speak to that, because you've really, as we wind down on time, it's not enough time. It's not enough time.
I know.
But you've been the example of what I want to ask you about now. I mean, hopefully we've taken people on this journey. We talked about your artistry and all that, but, we didn't really say you were a singer and all of this type of stuff. We didn't even talk about the college experience. So, I mean, when we're talking about finance and accounting, she's literally degreed in accounting and finance. So your history is rich, your experience is rich, but then just the business experience that you have in all of these different industries. And we've just scratched the surface in this conversation. But what has really been the common thread through all of this is what you've alluded to earlier. You talked about becoming a conscious entrepreneur. And you're the example of it. Even just what you just talked about in terms of the commitment to the home and everything that it means, that takes a different level of consciousness. So I just want you to explain in your own words, what do you mean when you say a conscious entrepreneur?
What I mean is that someone who profits with a purpose and introduces much needed goods and services into our community, but they do it in a way of consciousness. And so the easiest way to explain that is to compare and contrast it to predatory capitalism, which is a capitalistic system designed where people who dominate and prey on other people are those who make the most money. And they do it in a nice way. It's done with a smile. It's done with beautiful marketing, but it's really all about predatory behavior and dominance. And all of the business models are that way. They don't work unless there's somebody that is the dominant and somebody that is being dominated. As a conscious entrepreneur, obviously you're going to have your consumer, and you're going to have your consumer, and you're going to have your seller. But the conscious entrepreneur understands that the way they get where they want to go is, number one, through self-improvement. So as they begin to improve upon themselves, they begin to create different systems and think differently and attract different things to themselves. That's the one thing. But secondly, there's a cause, there's a purpose attached to what it is that they do. So it's more than just the bottom line. It's not make money by any means necessary. So if you're, for example, a restaurant, you're not going to pollute the environment, because part of your bottom line is not only making a profit, but ensuring that you preserve the environment. If you make certain containers, you're not polluting the landfills with your containers. So you have a cause. Is it intergenerational wealth? Is it educating our youth? Are you building a pipeline so that just like the white kids we went to school with, they already knew where they was going to work. Mm-hmm. A lot of them didn't even have to interview, but we was out here running around interviewing. Why? Because they've been interning at that company since they was in their teenage years. So are we building that kind of pipeline so that when Brother Bedford needs employees, he's got a pool of trained employees that he can go right to and tap right into? And, they're already indoctrinated into his system and how he does things. So conscious entrepreneurs understand that there's more to business and entrepreneurship than just making money. While that's very important, and we do need the money, and as conscious entrepreneurs, we make no excuses for making a lot of money and wanting a lot of money. We also understand that there's more to it.
Right. There's a purpose to it. Absolutely.
There's a platform.
Absolutely. So what are you doing right now? And I know we're right at the time, but again, I could talk to you all day. So this will be my final question. I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for sharing the time that you've spent with us and all of the wisdom that you shared. So what are you doing right now currently to kind of develop these conscious entrepreneurs? I know you got your hand in a few things, but one of the reasons that you're developing the home is to develop this type of environment to create these type of entrepreneurs. So what are you doing right now that people can become a part of as soon as possible?
So the home provides what I call place-based education. So you get to come and stand in the spot where Martin Luther King stood and really understand what did it take for them to do what they did. When you hear the stories, when you listen to the recordings, when you're in the energy of that environment, part of it is understanding the mental strategies and the mindset that it takes to make the differences that we're talking about making. It takes less mental strategies to just flow into the predatory capitalist system. But when you're trying to do something else, it takes a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And so I have the Mind of an Entrepreneur show, which we're working on now, bringing it back as a television show that's going to be on a Black online network. So we're working on that, helping people to gain access to mental strategies that will help them navigate the world of business. I'm working on, of course, partnership with you for our mastermind sessions where we're just teaching and training and creating this ecosystem and just letting this thing just multiply. And just doing a lot of coaching and consulting. I have the Black Muslim Business Directory, where we're bringing together Black Muslim entrepreneurs to really show the world that particular group of people that are investment worthy. And so that we can try to make some headway and investments and create mergers and introduce new products and services and just get us to buy from one another. And I tell people, buy Black Muslim first if you're a Muslim and try us, because we really do have a superior way of, and I don't mean superior in a arrogant way, but we have a disciplined way of doing business and conducting ourselves that I think deserves some recognition. It deserves that people pay attention to. It's a model that makes sense because you can trust us. We're trustworthy. We're disciplined. We're going to be clean. And if you're an employer, you know how important this kind of stuff is. I can't tell you how many times I've hired people and they leave my place a mess. Or I've hired people and they're just not honest. They're not straight up. Or they don't know how to communicate. And so there's a number of different attributes that we as Black Muslim business owners bring to the table that is truly investment worthy. And so one of my goals, part of my platform, is to really get the world to recognize that we are viable people to do business with. And that's where these think tanks and these masterminds, you know, are going to come into play. So I got a few other ventures. I'd be here all day talking about my ventures, but that's the big picture right now.
No, we're definitely going to have you back. We're going to make this a regular, because you and I, we have a chemistry. Again, this is almost like an introduction. That's how I kind of wanted to go through the breadth of everything that you do, but we can definitely do some deep dives on any one of these areas. But again, time is just not on our side to do all of those things. So you'll definitely come back to do that. Is there a way for them to contact you or to get involved with the Muslim Business Directory or hire you as a consultant or coach? Is there a way for them to contact you?
Yep. So to hire me as a consultant or coach, you just have to send an email to mindofanentrepreneur@gmail.com. And usually my assistant, she'll get back to you and ask you some questions. And what we tend to do is do one coaching session at no charge, and then you purchase the others. I know a lot of people want to just talk. I give away a lot of free game, but after the free game, when we start moving into strategy, I charge for those services. So the game is free, but the services are not. If you want to get involved in the Black Muslim Business Directory, just go to blackmuslimbusinessdirectory.com. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, I'm in 2 places at Mo Today. That's MOETODAY. There's lots of great content out there. I try to post mindset videos, excuse me, just about every other day. I have Sajda Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. We just talk about all the things that don't fit in the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. And you can also reach me at Sajda House on Instagram, SAJDAHHOUSC. I'm on Facebook at Mind of the Entrepreneur as well. And in both of those places, there's a bio there with a link that has links to all of my stuff. You can listen to past episodes of the show. You can get your coin. You can, do all of that stuff. So.
Oh, this is great. Thank you so much, Wendy. We're going to make sure that all of those links are at the bottom, all of those descriptions, because we don't want you to miss out. I want you. My job is to bring the best, the brightest minds, Black minds to our people. And you're just a jewel. You're one of those hidden jewels that will not be hidden anymore. I mean, all done. And really just the impact that you have with so many people. We're obligated to kind of make sure that we can support that in the best way possible. But more importantly, again, I may not be somebody's cup of tea, right? But then you may be the person that could take them to the next level. And everything that you're talking about, you and I have this statement, and here we're going to wrap it up right here, but you and I both historically have used the term that old business models don't work anymore. And so a lot of what you're saying, if anybody's paying attention to what's happening in the world of business and economics today, you could see that those business models are crumbling. And so this new way of thinking, this new way of connecting, this new way of collaborating, innovation, look at all of the innovative ideas that Sister Saj just shared with us today. This is doable for you, but you have to be around the people who think like that so that you can do it. So please make sure that you connect with Sister Sajda Wendy Muhammad. Thank you so much, Sister Sajda, for being with us. I love you.
Brother Bedford. You're the best. Love you too.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you. Talk soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.